What would you say if I told you that you've been using your flash all wrong when you're shooting a wedding? You'd probably say, "Shut up, internet guy, you don't know your ass from your head." And I would say, "Hey man, that's kind of mean." And then you would say, "You're right, that was kind of mean, I'm sorry. Can you tell me how I've been doing flash all wrong when I'm shooting a wedding?" And I would say, "Absolutely, just watch this video that I'm making right now." Over the next however many minutes this video is, I'm going to show you the kind of flash photography I'm talking about, why and when you might want to use it, exactly how you should use it, down to the equipment you might need, the settings to use on your camera, and the settings to use on your flash, and even how to edit. And that's right, I'm going to show you exactly how I edit these types of photos to really make them pop. And if you stick around to the very end of the video, I'm going to tell you how you can get a free preset from me so you can do these types of edits yourself. And once you figure out how to do this and do it right, you're not going to want to do flash any other way. What's up? My name is Walter. I am a photographer and commercial filmmaker based in the Southeast. What's up? My name is Walter. I am a photographer. What's up? My name is Walter. I am a photographer and commercial filmmaker based in the southeastern United States. And I got through the whole intro. Essentially, all you do is take your external flash that's in the hot shoe of your camera, tilt that bad boy forward. This is hard to do with only one hand. You see what I'm doing? It's resting on my knee. Are you ready for this? Tilt it forward. Bada bing, bada boom, you're doing direct flash. So yes, it is easy, but there are several small things that I do that, when they are all put together, give me this specific look that I've been doing at weddings and other kind of more specific shoots for a few years now. It's a high-key look that's also very spotlighted, meaning that it's really only the center of the image that's lit up very strongly, and depending on your other camera settings, can really melt away everything else in your frame that the light is not directly hitting, which results in a very strong subject, removing all other distractions. And it's a really cool effect that, when done right, can give your subject that classic-looking old Hollywood feel. Okay, so let's talk about how you actually do this. First, obviously, you will need a reliable camera with a working hot shoe mount. The one I'm using as an example here is my Sony A7IV, and then, of course, you'll need a flash as well. This is the Godox V1. This is a more expensive setup than you might have, and that's okay because you can do this on a lot less expensive of a setup, and I'll put links to my suggestions for what you can do with that in the description. I can fully recommend any speed light from Godox, as they make flashes for like every camera system and across a range of different budgets. So the flash that I showed off here just now is the Godox V1. It is a little bit more expensive, but you get a round flash head, which is kind of a, more of a flattering flash effect. You get rechargeable batteries that last a really long time, and the recharge time between shots is a lot faster as well. So it is extremely reliable, especially on something like a dance floor at a wedding when you're just shooting, and you don't want to worry about your flash not firing for any particular photo. If you're starting off on a little bit more of a budget, or you're not firing flash as much as I am sometimes at weddings, I can also fully recommend another Godox flash. This is the TT350. This is the S version specifically, which just means it's for Sony. But again, Godox makes flashes for Fujifilm, Canon, Nikon, for everybody. So as long as you get the specific version for your camera, you'll be good. I like this little flash because it is little, it's very small, it's very light. I don't feel it anywhere near as much as I do when using my V1 if I have it on my camera all day. But it does use AA batteries that die pretty quickly, and the recharge time between flashes, it can be a little long if you're trying to shoot like a lot of photos all in a row. So make the decision that is right for you, your style of shooting, and for your budget, but I can recommend either of these flashes for either of those use cases. And finally, you will need a good wide-angle lens. I recommend any focal length from like maybe 16 millimeters on the widest possible end to like 35 millimeters, and this can depend on how dramatic you want this effect to be, because the wider your focal length, the more pronounced the spotlight effect is. So like at 35 millimeters, the flashes you can cover pretty much the whole frame if you want to, maybe leaving a little bit of darkness around the edges, that kind of falls off like that. But on something like a 16 millimeter lens or around there, your flash can really laser in on your subject, making them really stand out in the frame. Just kind of depends on the look that you're going here. going for here. I really love my Sony 20mm 1.8, which is on my A7 IV right now. It's my go-to lens for this kind of direct flash effect, especially on dance floors, because I don't have to really worry about like composition too much. It's a very run and gun documentary style shooting. The flash is popping off. The 20mm is getting everything in frame. I can get multiple people in one frame. I can get closer and just get one person in the frame. It's an amazing lens for stuff like that. But of course, again, there's all different kinds of lenses and different focal lengths and budgets to fit your shooting style and what you're going for here. So do a little bit of research. You might already have a good wide angle lens you like to use, in which case, bada bing, bada boom, you're off to the races. You're good. I'll leave that there for now. I'm not going to tell you exactly what lens you have to get. Just between 16 and 35mm, depending on how strong you want this effect to be. And that's all the equipment you need. Easy, right? So let's really quick talk about the settings I recommend you use on your camera and your flash. If you want to darken your background a good bit and really let your flash do the heavy lifting here when it comes to like actually having light in your frame, you should shoot from like f4 to f8. I would tend to lean more towards the f8 end of things, but again, it just depends on your preferences here. It also depends on how strong your ambient light is in your frame. Maybe if it's a very dark dance floor, there's very little ambient light, you can shoot maybe at f4, f5.6. But if there's a lot of other lights going on and you want those lights to melt away, close that down to like, closer to f8. And then your ISO, depending on where your aperture is, should fall anywhere between ISO 400 and 800. Again, depending on where your aperture is at and how much ambient light you're wanting to let into your shots. And finally, your shutter speed can be anywhere between 1/25 or 1/200, depending on if you want to do shutter drag or not. So see, if you want to completely freeze your subject, you're going to shoot at like 1/200, because most speed lights, that's the maximum that's the fastest shutter speed that it can sync to the camera with. But if you want some shutter drag, if you want some of those like light trails and really show some motion but still like kind of freeze your subject, then you can shoot at like 1/25 seconds, and it gives this really cool effect. And if you don't want it as much, but a little bit of it, you can go to 1/60, 1/80. Kind of depends completely on your preference here and what you like in your photos. Maybe if you're shooting something like a wedding reception dance floor, you can get a mix of the two, so kind of move your shutter speed throughout, depending on the effect you're going for. However, I don't recommend going slower than 1/25 of a second for shutter drag, as it starts to get a little obnoxious. If you go any slower than that, it gets way too blurry and you can't really, there's no defined subjects anymore at that point. So just experiment with your camera settings here, figure out what works best for you. The settings I just gave you are what I think are best practice, but again, depends on what you're looking for here. So just as a recap, aperture anywhere between f4 and f8, ISO between 400 and 800, and your shutter speed 1/25 for some shutter drag, and then 1/200 if you want to completely freeze that motion. So those are your camera settings, but now we have to adjust our flash settings. Some purists might scoff at this, but I almost always just use my flash at completely auto power. It's too much work for me to constantly be worrying about how powerful my flash is as I'm moving around a dance floor, so I just keep it on auto, and it reads both my camera settings and the distance to my subject to approximate how much light it should be pushing out at any given time. And this works well for me. Sometimes I'll have to do some exposure compensation on the flash, which you can do as well. You can do a +1 or +2 or any kind of like fractions in between. And I'll do that if it's like consistently under or overexposing. I'll kind of move that a little bit, but for the most part, it's just fine. And I'm always shooting raw, so I really don't care if it misses exposure by a little bit, because it's very easy to pull that back up or down in Lightroom. But the most important setting for your flash here for this particular spotlight effect is the zoom feature. You may or may not know that your flash can actually zoom in or out. Most people would use this zoom feature to match their focal length so that the light fully fills the frame, and that works if that's the look you're going for. That's totally fine. That's what the zoom feature was intended to do. But that's not what we're going to do here. We're going to get a little crazy with it, get a little funky with it. We're going to set our zoom as tight as it will go on our flash. So if I'm shooting on this 20mm lens here, I am not setting my flash to be, I think the widest it goes is 24. I'm not setting it to that. I'm going to set this flash to like 50 to 85mm zoom. And what that's going to do is focus in our light very strongly, and it's kind of the final piece of the puzzle to actually give us that spotlight effect. So what it's going to do is really focus in that light. It's a smaller circle of light that's hitting your subject, and it's going to really help the rest of the frame kind of melt away and not distract from your subject. Your viewer is going to be really dialed in on what's going on with your subject because your light is focusing only on them. Now, if you're shooting on like an ultra wide, like 16 millimeters or something, you might want to tone down the zoom a little bit if it's too strong for your taste. But again, this is all about your taste, so experiment with this as well a little bit. But I would recommend just starting with your flash zoomed all the way in. If you feel like that's a little too much, you can easily bring it back just a little bit, and that's totally fine. Again, depends on the look you're going for, the lens you're using, all that kind of stuff. And that's it. It is really quite simple to achieve this type of flash photography, and it can be a very useful and fun element to add to your shooting repertoire. I wrote repertoire right there, and I have a hard time not saying it with that stupid ass accent. I use this shooting style all the time on dance floors, but I also use it, for some more creative portraits sometimes, or if I want to go really crazy on some detail shots and get that really high key look. In situations like that, I might zoom the flash out just a little bit if I don't want it spotlighted as much, but again, I do want that spotlight effect a good bit of the time, so I'll keep it zoomed in. So just experiment with it, have fun with it, see how you like it, and obviously feel free to make it your own and fit it in with your already existing shooting style. Say the widest lens you have is a 35, you can absolutely still do this with a 35. I would recommend maybe at some point investing in a wider lens to really go crazy with it, but I've definitely done it with a 35 and it works well. Real quick little bonus section before we wrap the video here, I'm going to show you how I edit one of these photos using my own presets that I created called the Fujifilm Preset Pack, which is available to purchase on my website with a special $5 off coupon code just for you. But if you, again, watch through the end of the video, I'm going to show you how I edit this. I'm not going to hide any of my Lightroom settings, so if you want to do the extra work of just like copying, having Lightroom open on one screen and this video open on the other, and you can copy my Lightroom settings if you want to, go for it. I don't care at this point. Even if you don't want to do that, if you watch to the end of the video, I'm going to tell you exactly how you can get one of my presets completely for free, no strings attached at all. Really quick, I did a video last week where I kind of like introduced my preset pack, and I had somebody be like, I thought you were going to show me how to edit, not just push your presets. And I said, you know what, man, that's fair. Let me give you something for free then. Let me show you how I do it, and then you can kind of take it from there and do what you want. So if you want to support me, if you want all the presets that I've made, you can go purchase those presets on my website. But again, you don't have to. I'm about to show you how to edit some of this with one or two of my presets. Okay, so this is a direct flash photo I took at a wedding last year, shot on the Sony A7IV with that 20mm 1.8 lens. I'm going to throw on my Fujifilm Superior preset, and I'll show you what this looks like in just a second. Right off the bat, it's a little too hot. We're gonna bring down exposure a little bit. It's a very crunchy, very contrasty type of look, which works really well for some of these direct flash looks. As you can see here on the side, the color, the white balance is staying as shot. The exposure I brought down just a little bit. You can see my sliders here. We pump up the vibrance a good bit to bring a lot of those colors. You can bring that back if you want to. That's more your style. Kind of just depends what you're going for. I might bring it back a little bit in this shot to about, let's do plus 20. You can see what my tone curve is doing here. Again, it's something pretty subtle. It's not an S curve, and I'm not flattening the highlights as much. But in this particular photo, I think I might actually flatten the highlights a little bit to even it out. Not a little too much. Let's do it about right there. You can see my luminance tab. I've got my different colors moved around here to kind of simulate that classic Superior look. You can see what the saturation is doing as well. You can see what the hues are doing. And that's about it on color. I got a little bit of split toning going on. Got a little bit of like orangish in the midtones, a little bit of blue in the shadows, and the highlights are staying still. That's really about it. You can see I've got a pretty specific grain response here. The amount is pretty low, but the roughness is pretty high. The size is also low. So if you zoom in here, you can see that it is a very small but strong grain response. So we'll see what that looks like with no grain, and then with grain. You might not even be able to tell with YouTube compression, but it's very subtle. And then I have a little bit of calibration down here in the reds and the greens for our Superior preset. I want to show you this photo as well so you can see that I overexposed with the flash. It was too strong. And so you can also see what maybe a black and white look is with this kind of look. So we're going to throw on Fujifilm Acros, which is our black and white. And then the Sony A7IV has some pretty good dynamic range and some pretty good exposure and highlight recovery. So we can just bring our exposure down until it's about where we want it to be, and see we got all the details back in his face, and it's great. So this look works really well with black and white. You can see we've spotlighted entirely on our subject dancing here, but you can still see the background. You can still see some context of people looking at him and having a great time. You can see a little bit of the live band in the back, and the videographer as well. That's fun. But really, you're really focused in on our subject here. And the last photo in this style that I wanted to show you is a detail shot, kind of like a very simple flat lay. This is direct flash. The flash is right on top of the camera, pointing straight down, again with that 20mm lens on the Sony A7IV. We're shooting at f4, ISO 400, and our shutter speed is at 1/200th. I don't need any shutter drag on something like this. We'll throw on Fujifilm Chrome. Very simple, very like minimalistic preset, but still, you know, a little bit stylized. We'll bring up the exposure maybe a little bit, give it that high key look. You know, maybe we can use our dehaze to introduce some more contrast into it. You can kind of play around with that. Even with the contrast slider, you can move your shadows up or down if you want to. So you have a few different options here to see what Chrome is doing. A more subtle tone curve even than in Superior. You can see what our hues are doing, our saturation is doing, and what our luminance is doing. There is a very, very little bit of split toning on the Chrome preset with just a tiny bit of red in the highlights. In case you were watching last week's video and you're like, man, I really thought he was going to show me how to edit and he didn't. Well, that's my bad. Here it is. I'm showing you how to edit. Even with these direct flash photos, the Fujifilm presets look really good. So again, if you like the way I edit my photos here and you're interested in the presets, but you're like, I don't want to give this guy my money. I just want, you know, try one of his presets and see if it works for me. That's totally fine. Here's what you can do. You can go to the link in the description of this video, and there it will take you directly to a download link to get the Fujifilm Chrome preset entirely for free. That is all for you. You don't have to put in a code. You don't have to put in your credit card, nothing. That is completely free for you to use. You can use it in Lightroom Classic, normal Lightroom, whatever you want to do. If you like that preset and you want to use my other ones as well, well, then you can still go to my website and buy the whole pack and use that $5 off code, which is also in the description of this video. So what do you think about this direct flash style? Is it for you? Is it too stylized and maybe you hate it? I don't know. Will you be trying this out for yourself? Please let me know in the comments. And if you want to know how I feel about the Fujifilm XT5 as a wedding photography camera, I made a whole video talking about that, which you can watch right here, somewhere here. And if you want to support me in the channel, you can check out my preset pack on my website, or you can simply like this video, leave a comment, even subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this from me. And if not, if you don't do any of that, that's totally fine, because I will see you in the algorithm in 6 months. Amazing. I'm so good at this.